Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. Patrick Olson and his brand new show, Emergence, has come to New York's Pershing Square Signature Theater, where it has received rave reviews. It is a combination rock concert, modern dance, science lecture, and some mind-blowing psychedelic visuals. And I caught up with Patrick here at the Jewel Box Theater right before a performance. Well, listen, first of all, how excited are you to be here with your show in New York?
It's the most thrilling thing I've ever experienced, frankly. It's an amazing experience, and every day feels like Christmas.
This show is so big and so beautiful. You've got singers, you've got dancers, you've got visual work, and you're all so in sync.
Yeah.
Like, how long was the rehearsal process of putting this whole show together?
I would say we rehearsed intensively for about 2 weeks, but we were able to basically borrow from everything that we had designed from the earlier shows, so we knew what the DNA of the show was, and it was really just a matter of working in the new talent and training everybody up on the material and then rehearsing to the point where it just feels natural.
Yeah, because you have such an incredible diverse life. I mean, you're a composer, musician, a scientist, producer. Was this what came first? Like, when did you first start composing, and when did you first become a musician?
I was 8 years old, honestly, when I magnanimously told my piano teacher, "Mother, I shall never play anyone else's music again. I will only write my own." And she said, "Okay, that's fine. Now go make your bed." But truly, I've been writing music my whole life. But I've never done anything with it other than share it with friends and family. It's been my own sort of meditative practice, but this show, this idea has given me sort of a catalyst for bringing the composition experience that I've got together with all of the visuals and the singing and everything else that we're doing to kind of create something new. Yeah.
So take me back to the 8-year-old Patrick. You're sitting there at the piano. Were you self-taught? Did you have a teacher?
I had a piano teacher for a number of years, but I honestly never learned to read music. It was a struggle for me, and I think I have maybe a little minor dyslexia. But I always thought of the two staffs in written music as like trying to read 2 lines of a book simultaneously. It just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And I just found I understood some of the musical patterns. I began to understand what chord progressions were and to understand how to do things musically. And so, that just kind of developed in my own composition.
So who were your influences growing up? Because your music's dynamite. The songs in the show are terrific.
Thank you, Richard.
So who inspired you growing up?
Well, I lived in New York in 1984, 1985 for a couple of years, and I saw David Byrne stop making sense at a theater in the Greenwich Village, and I stumbled out of that into the afternoon and walked into 6th Avenue dazed into traffic. That had such an immense impact on me that I carry it with me today. I think he's a master.
Yeah.
Other influences, there's a lot of obscure stuff no one would necessarily know, but the more commonly known influences would be like Peter Gabriel and Roxy Music and 9 Inch Nails and in that general context of kind of complex orchestral productions, that are involved and that move and have a lot going on. I like that kind of musical complexity.
How do you describe this show? Because so much happens in this show that's a combination of so many different things.
Yeah, it's a challenge to describe the show because it really is novel. It's sort of form-breaking.
Yeah.
I think of it as its own genre, really, because it borrows elements from, like on our poster, we have, it's a musical, and then that's crossed out, and it's a monologue, and that's crossed out. It's a play, and then that's crossed out, and on and on and on, because it is all of those things, and it's not either. It's a kind of a recombination of those elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have some incredible singers in your show.
Too.
Right? You got 4 singers. You got 3 incredible dancers in the show.
Yeah.
When did they enter the fold into this production?
Well, one of the singers, Cherry Davis, was in our LA show, and she's our vocal director, and so she was part of the Los Angeles DNA that we brought to New York. And everyone else is new. Everyone else is, New York talent. And boy, talent's the word, too.
Yeah.
I feel so grateful and gifted to be in their presence. And I honestly, You know, when it's my time to go off stage, I'm always peeking through the curtain, and my heart is always swelling at just their incredible competence and artistic delivery.
Because you're such a visual artist too when you watch this show. I mean, there's so much. The visuals in this show are stunning.
Thank you.
Was this all stuff you thought about when you were creating the show with the people
Yeah.
that you created it with?
Yeah, you know, I really wanted kind of a psychedelic quality to the visuals, because the things that we're talking about in the show, you know, it begins with things that we assume are kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Every spoken part of the show starts with something that seems like everyone ought to know this. This tulip is yellow, right? And everyone nods, yeah, it's yellow, but it's not.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of the universe, is when you dig at things a little bit, they are not, as the through line of the show is, things are not as they appear. And that there's so much fertile material there to be able to start with something everyone assumes they know and haven't thought about very much, and then you flip it and expand on it, and it's like, oh my gosh, is that such an interesting thing? So that dynamic really lends itself well to super expressive, super vibrant and colorful kinds of imagery. And I just really wanted to, I know it's an overused word, but I wanted to immerse people in unpredictable, dynamic color as this show is proceeding.
And then there's a science element of it.
There
I
is.
learned so much from your show.
Thank you.
And then, being entertained all at the same time. I walked out of here a lot smarter than when I came in on Saturday night. I was like, oh, I'm going back to his show again. But how did you get involved in science?
Well, I was a science publisher.
Yeah.
And so I started my own company in 1991. And I had been in the business of educational publishing for the college market, but I had my own ideas of how we might create a company and shape it to do things a little differently. And so that turned out to be enormously successful. So I was not a scientist per se, but I had a lot of contact with scientists.
Yeah.
And really it was just hundreds of conversations with them over the years. That was a 15 or 20 year run that really shaped my understanding of the universe, and I feel like I got it right from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
These were people on the cutting edge of a lot of research, and they were thrilled to talk about their research and what it meant and what the implications might be, and I was just all ears, and I don't know, thousands of hours in front of really smart scientists informing me how the world works.
When you were writing the songs for this show,
Yeah.
were you thinking of the science end of it at the same time, or tell me
some.
about that? Yeah,
Some. When I tell people the show is a mashup of some spoken word things and then complimentary songs and then with the visuals and the dancing and all of this stuff. I can tell sometimes people think, oh, so it's like, you talk about the periodic table and then there's a jingle about the periodic, but it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
We don't talk about test tubes or the scientific method, any of that stuff. We talk about the implications of what science has showed us about the universe. We talk about the universe, and then the songs come out of that. So they're not terribly on the nose. They're related, but if you listen to all of the music separately, you might not really infer a theme from that necessarily, But when it's paired with the spoken parts, then the spoken parts create context for it, and it makes a lot more sense. And I just feel like, music is part of the humanities, right? And science is part of the technical accumulation of knowledge. And the two of those things put together really creates a balanced understanding of the world. And I think so often we fall into camps.
Yeah.
There's a humanities camp. Oh, I don't know math. I don't know anything about science. And then the scientists are like, I don't know about you crazy theater people.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's beauty and a fascination in the combination of those two things.
Yeah, this is a perfect show. It's like a perfect cake. All these things shouldn't go together, but they go together beautifully when they're all put together.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the modern dance element that you put
they're
into it. Let's
amazing.
talk about that. And your choreography.
Thank you.
Like, who choreographed your moves?
Oh no, it just happens. It just happens. But the dancers are extremely talented, and it is a combination of some super edgy modern dance where you just wonder, what is the species that I am looking at? Because people are moving in non-human ways. And there's also classical ballet, and so it covers a spectrum, like the whole range of dance is brought to bear in the show. And we hope it's brought to bear in ways where it makes sense for that to be happening right now and this to be happening right then, you know?
And let's talk about your moves.
Yeah.
Did you come up with yours?
I did. I did, yeah.
Did you in front of a mirror in a dance studio?
Some of that, yeah. Actually, some of it quite a bit until I felt a degree of comfort with it. But you know, some of the things are very, very prescribed.
Yeah.
Some of the movements, and some of it's just like, I don't know, what am I going to do now? What does this feel like? So there's a mixture of things that would be the same every night, and then other things that are just not what you expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The show is so hypnotic.
Thank you.
In this incredible way. Was that something you were thinking of from the very beginning, or after you saw it, you were like, wow?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because we meet the audience in the lobby after every show.
Yeah.
We greet everybody because we want to be connected, and we're so grateful that people would actually get off their sofa and come all the way here and, you know, buy a ticket and sit and watch the show. I just feel a need to sort of embrace people, or at least touch them on the way out and say thank you for this, you know. And when we talk with them, they're so effusive and so warm, and the outpouring of their feelings and their responses is so strong that it's actually a little bit in contrast to what's happening in the show. Because in the show, you know, on those occasions when I can see people in the audience, there's just rapt attention. People are incredibly focused on this thing, and that's like an energy that I feed on because I can feel their attention focused like that. And I think it requires that because some of the concepts, you know, are a little challenging to grasp. It's not mathy, it's not super sciencey, but it's about the nature of the universe. It's not how I thought about it, and oh, it's this way. And that puts people into some kind of a state of consciousness that looks a lot like hypnosis, really, you know?
It's how we should have focused in school.
Right.
But now we could do it at your show. It's totally, I thought, really, really smart. But I want to talk about your audience. I loved the audience the other night. You had these young, hip, young kids that listened to music, and then you had like a little older audience that loved science and music, and everything else in between. Like, when you meet them, what that means to is like this beautiful mix of people that are coming to the show.
It's honestly shaken us a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the real strengths of the show is that it brings the ability for all kinds of different people to connect in different ways to it, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't have to conform to the show. You can bring your own perspective and your own experience and still have so much material to connect with no matter who you are.
Yeah.
You know?
Then there's your killer band. Your musicians are the best.
Thank you.
What's it like working with them?
It's wonderful. Like they're just there every single time. You never have to think about it. You know, there's never any concerns about like how's our timing doing, or you know what's happening with this or that. They're total pros, and I'm lucky.
So, you know, there's some beautiful clips of you already. When you watch yourself, this happens so quickly for you, of like turning into this big stage animal now and bringing this incredible rock musical show to New York, and, you know, physics and science. Like, what's going through your mind, like where you are now, what you're doing, and what you're putting out here for audiences here in New York?
I don't know how to describe it, Richard. I really don't. I mean, it's a change of identity that I wasn't anticipating, which I think is such an interesting thing, that opportunity can exist for anyone, everybody. It's not always obvious. You know, what's the thing to do next that may just completely infuse a person with a whole new journey. That's not obvious, but I was lucky in this case, and I fell into it, and I met the right people, and one thing happened after another, a lot of luck. And now when I watch this, I think of myself in those terms. That's how I think of myself. And so I just, you know, I'll see clips of the show and I'll think critically about it, and I put myself in the position of the audience and should we do this a little differently or that? But it all feels quite comfortable now, which is bizarre.
No, the show is perfection.
Oh,
you don't look at those clips anymore. But, you know, you also you wrote and recorded and released the album Music for Scientists.
Yeah.
How proud are you of that album?
You know, I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's a really interesting album, and I think the production values are really good, and I don't know of anything quite like it, you know? I mean, the album was really, the title of the album is dedicated to scientists.
Yeah.
But here again, if you listen to all the songs independent of that, you wouldn't necessarily tie them together as having a science-y theme. But when you call it that and put it in that context, then it's like, oh yeah, well, that makes sense, because this song, there's a little bit of a relationship there and here and there. And I like to think that all together, it almost like a bunch of pixels, the songs work together to have a certain kind of image emerge out of it. You know?
But like I said, music has a science to it too.
Oh, it does.
So you combine the best of the two worlds together.
Yeah.
Finally, what are you enjoying the most about being here in New York and doing this show here?
I enjoy the time after the show the most. When people come out and tell me their stories and express to me what this show has meant for them, sometimes it's hard a little to process, and I feel some responsibility, but people are moved.
Yeah.
And they'll wait for 20 minutes or a half an hour for the chance to talk. And you know, one of the themes of this whole show is that it's about connection, right? And so those are the moments, because of the show, because the show builds this connection with people, the moments afterward where I can talk to people and understand what their experience with the show has been and what they think of it, it carries so much weight for me. You know?
Do you know every audience member the night I was there stayed to talk to you?
It's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you can move people this way through everything. And like I said, highly entertaining, and we felt much smarter after we left this show. So if anyone's looking for a good time at the theater, look no further than Patrick Olson's Emergence, playing here at Signature's Pershing Square in the Jewel Box. This has been great.
Thank you, Richard.
Really nice.
What a pleasure.